This is buy, sell, hold, and the final word. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rico Hizon. The real estate sector also felt the brunt of the pandemic, with thousands of businesses closing shop due to loss of income. But a property consultant firm is confident the sector will recover lost ground this year. Let's now have a chat with Lee Chu Property Consultant CEO, David Lee Chu, to learn more about their forecast. David, great to have you with us. Let's break it down into subsectors. Let's start off with office space demand. How have landlords adjusted with the closure or the downsizing of many micro, small, and medium companies?
So thankfully, that segment is a very small portion of the office market.
Mm-hmm.
A large chunk of the office market is comprised of BPOs, multinationals, and POGOs.
Mm.
And the BPO companies are continuing to expand in the Philippines. And what we said very early on in this pandemic last year is that this pandemic is exciting because it's going to bring more jobs to the Philippines. And as we've seen in the last 20 years, as the world goes into crisis, more and more jobs are going to the Philippines. And so since June or May of 2020 to today, we've had a very steady climb of demand for office space every quarter. So that's about 5 quarters of straight appreciating growth rates for the office sector.
David, you mentioned about the POGOs, no? Before the March 2020 lockdowns, they took up a lot of office space. Have they left for good, or are they coming back?
They've contracted by about 30% of their footprint. So out of the 1.75 million square meters, they've cut back about 30%. And what's interesting in the last 6 months is that contraction has slowed down meaningfully, meaning they're not giving up more and more space. And this law that we're waiting for, that will hopefully be signed off by the president very soon, will give them a legal platform as well as a very clear tax platform.
Right.
And the only other thing we have to wait for is the opening of the airways to allow the foreign workers to come back in.
What about the residential sector, David? What about the residential sector? Lease rates are dropping and vacancy levels increasing. What are the options here? So
what's interesting about the residential condo market, and this is across 520 buildings, okay, and 380,000 units, so a very big base, is that despite a contraction of 10% of the economy, and despite a drop of rents by as much as 35% in certain cases, not everywhere, but in certain cases, as much as a 35% drop, the property values continue to fall. Okay?
Right.
So imagine, minus 10 on the economy, minus 35 in certain districts in terms of rent, and yet property prices continue to hold in value, in some cases go up in value, and I think the worst is over for the property market. Yes, we're going to go into another lockdown. It will kill a lot of businesses, but I think the recovery is just around the corner, especially when a big chunk of the population,
David,
primarily Metro Manila, will get vaccinated in the next 3 to 4 months.
And briefly, David, how do our property values compare with other real estate markets in the region? For example, Singapore, Bangkok, Jakarta, Hong Kong.
So before values, let's talk about demand. Demand for office space is one of the highest in the world. Despite COVID in 2020 and first 6 months of 2021, we remain to be one of the highest new transactions of office space in the world. And in terms of property values, we're still nothing. We're like 10%, 15% of Hong Kong, maybe 20%, 15% of Singapore. We still have a long way to go.
A lot of potential upside for the Philippine property market. David Lee Chu from Lee Chu Property Consultants, thank you so much for your insights.